Okay, let's dive in. For a while there, it kind of felt like the AI world was, pretty set, dominated by just a few giants, OpenAI, Google, the usual suspects.
Right.
But now, suddenly there's this new challenger, and honestly, from a direction maybe not everyone expected.
It's pretty amazing how fast things can shift in this space. We're looking at this new release from DeepSeek. They're a Chinese startup.
Yeah.
It's their latest model, DeepSeek R1-0528.
Right, and this isn't just like a minor tweak, is it? It sounds like a pretty big step up from their earlier R1 model.
Definitely.
And the really big news, it's open source. Completely.
Yeah.
And DeepSeek is being super clear about their goal. They want this thing to perform right up there with the top proprietary models. They're even naming names like OpenAI's O3 and Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Yeah, they're not shy about it. And the
hmm
info we've been digging into shows some pretty compelling stuff about what this model can actually do and why it's making waves.
So that's our mission for this deep dive, right? Get past the headlines.
Exactly. Figure out its capabilities, how it really stacks up, and maybe most importantly, why any of this matters to you.
It really makes you wonder, like, where did this level of competition just spring from?
So how are they backing up this claim, this idea of being almost on par with the giants?
Well, the benchmarks are pretty dramatic, apparently, especially compared to their last version.
This is where it gets really interesting. DeepSeek seems to have doubled down on complex reasoning. They mentioned the AM 2025 test. Accuracy apparently jumped from 70% to like 87.5%. That's huge.
Wow.
And coding performance, too, on Live Code Bench, it climbed quite a bit from about 63% to over 73%.
And wasn't there that humanities last exam test? The figures we saw suggest performance more than doubled. That's not just inching forward, that's a serious leap.
Yeah, it suggests much dupper reasoning capabilities. And DeepSeek's own internal tests are apparently putting it neck and neck with O3 and Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Models you usually have to pay for or deal with pretty tight usage limits.
Right, so the obvious question is how? How did they manage that kind of improvement?
They seem to point to two main things. One, just throwing more compute power at it during development. And two, some clever algorithmic tweaks after the main training was done.
Okay, so it's not just about the raw scores. The details also mention user experience stuff, especially for developers, right?
Exactly. Things like native JSON output support, which is basically getting the AI to reliably structure its answers so software can read it easily. That's super important.
Definitely.
And function calling is in there too, letting developers hook the AI up to external tools or APIs. These are the kinds of features you actually need to build real apps.
Right. Makes sense.
And apparently, they've also smoothed out the general interaction, made it easier to use. Plus, and this is important, they've worked on cutting down the hallucination rate, trying to make the output more reliable.
Always a challenge.
For sure. Oh, and they added system prompts, too. Makes it simpler to get the model to adopt a certain persona or follow specific instructions compared to before.
Okay, but what about running this thing? Not everyone has, a supercomputer in their basement. Good point. It seems they thought about that. They've distilled some of this capability into a smaller version. DeepSeek R1-0528 Qwen 38B.
Ah, a distilled version. So smaller, more accessible.
Kind of. It's aimed at being top tier among open source models for certain tasks. The notes suggest it might beat models like Qwen 3AB by 10% on AME 2024, and maybe even match much bigger models elsewhere.
Okay, but practically, what hardware are we talking?
Well, the specific suggests an 8 billion parameter model using half precision, which saves space, still needs maybe around 16 gigs of VRAM. Think like an RTX 3090 or 4090.
So pretty high-end for many people.
True, but for quantized versions optimize even more for memory GPUs with 8 to 12 gigs, like a more common RTX 3060, might actually be able to run it locally.
Okay, that does bring it closer for more people. And the licensing.
That's another big plus. It's under the MIT license. Super permissive, lets you use it commercially without major headaches.
Right.
And the model weights, the actual AI brain, are up on Hugging Face. Plus, they have an API that stays updated, and you can even try it out for free on their website.
So pretty easy to get your hands on it one way or another.
Seems like it. And the initial chatter we're seeing from developers, pretty positive. Someone called Hater at Slow Developer Online apparently called it incredible at coding.
Really?
Yeah, praising how it generates clean code with working tests right away, which they said they'd mostly only seen from O3 before. Others are flat out saying DeepSeek is now aiming for the king.
Meaning O3 and Gemini 2.5 Pro.
Exactly.
So given all that, the performance jumps, the features, the accessibility, the early buzz, It sounds like the excitement is pretty justified.
I think so. If you step back and look at the big picture,
Yeah.
the really key takeaway from all this material is, well, it's pretty profound, actually,
What do you...
that an open source AI model, one you can download freely, use pretty much however you want thanks to the license, and maybe even run on decent consumer hardware,
Mhm.
is now being talked about in the same breath, performance-wise, as the most advanced, closed-off proprietary systems from the biggest players.
That really changes the game, doesn't it?
It could. So thinking about what this all means.
Yeah, it leaves you with a big question to chew on. If open source AI can genuinely reach this level of power and be this accessible, what does that really mean for where AI innovation happens next? Is power going to stay concentrated? And maybe more personally, how might you start using or even benefiting from tools like this?